Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, this channel is all about my journey throughout CRNA school. So today's video is going to be a year 3 recap video as well as a CRNA school reflection video. If you guys are interested, let's get into the nitty gritty. So the last I updated you guys, I was just finishing the C exam. That was the second to last week of the semester. We had just finished our live review week, and I had one more week until the actual end of school, but as far as finishing school itself, I had already finished at that point, and then I started to switch gears to study for boards. We were waiting to hear when we would get whatchamacallit, the ability to test, and it took longer than expected because the MBCRNA was closed for the holidays, so we didn't get actual the ability to sign up for the exam until December 30th. We finished school on, well, the last day we had class was I think the 14th or the 13th of December. And then they said the actual day that school was going to end was December 22nd, and they were going to submit the information for the 23rd, but the MBCRNA was closed from the 23rd to the 29th, so we didn't get anything here back until the 30th. So at that point I took some time off where I didn't do anything. I kind of just vegetated for a bit. I just needed to decompress, and this whole torture that I went through with the C exam and school in general, the 3 years had just come to an end. So I took some time off, and then I started studying for boards. But I kind of I don't know, I just kind of fell off the bandwagon as far as uploading and posting, because it was I don't know, I just kind of lost motivation. I don't know how to explain it. So that's why there was a lapse in me posting. Let's talk about what I've experienced, what I've been able to reflect on since finishing school. I'll tell you this, at this point right now, I'm in a credentialing, the credentialing period for my new job. So it's kind of I'm in a wayward place where it's I'm in limbo, so to speak. I have no job, but I'm waiting to start. So I've had time to really rejuvenate and recuperate from what I went through. But the first year I feel was definitely the hardest. It was becoming a student again. No matter how you went through getting into school, if you went right away, you did nursing, then you did your 1 year of ICU experience and back into school, that time where you're not a student to going back into being a full-time student, it's not easy. I'll say that I hadn't really done that since 2008. So, because that's when I did my, not 2008, excuse me, that was high school. Wow, pray for me. Since 2012, because right after high school, I finished in 2008. I did a 4-year bachelor's degree, and I was doing that full time. I was working as well, but where I had 4 or 5 classes a semester, I hadn't done that since then. So starting this program in 2022 and having 5 classes, I think that was the biggest shell shock. The fear of failure, that was huge, because I've never really been a good student. And I mentioned that a lot in my channel, that my GPA would always haunt me, and everything would just fall on the GPA from when I did my first bachelor's degree. So it was just a lot was riding on it. I just felt like I needed to prove myself, and it was just more stress than I needed because I put that on myself. But anyway, it was hard transitioning to becoming a full-time student again after being a full-time nurse. And then, once you kind of get into the swing of it, by semester 3, I felt like a pro. I was getting all A's in my classes. I felt like I had it down to a science. And then the 4th semester, which was our last semester of didactic, they incorporated the C exam. And so that was another stressor right there. We had started our 2nd year, and everything was going smoothly, kind of following the same path I was going. And the C exam just became quite a nightmare, because I just couldn't pass. They wanted a 425 at the time, and I just couldn't get it. It took me 3 attempts to get it. So I had to really evaluate what was most important, and I really hated to do that, because I just wanted to make sure I excelled in everything, but I had to prioritize what was most important, what was not most important. And what really was the more important factor in it was passing the C exam so I can move on to the clinical portion of the program. But I'll tell you, like, that was one of the hardest times in my life. That was March, April of 2023. My dog passed away. My grandma was diagnosed with lymphoma. It was just like so many things. And then knowing that I was going to be going into clinicals kind of like was just a stressor in and of itself. I live with anxiety 24/7. So you can just imagine it was already at its peak. And then it's like, so that C exam, I think, really like took me down, but I was able to pick myself back up and get through the clinical portion. The first semester of clinicals was semester 5. This was in May of 2023, and we had 32-hour weeks, and it was just like trying to just stay afloat, trying to just keep my head above water. I was like literally like that, like barely above water, but managed that. And then once we got into semester 6, that was 40-hour weeks, and it was just like, it was a different type of like hard, because there was no like tests or anything, so to speak. It was like we had assignments, we had quizzes, and we had things like that, but it wasn't like anything that I felt was academically challenging, so to speak. We were working at that point, we had started working on capstone stuff, and that was another thing that we had to like put in the front of our minds, because we're not going to be able to get our degree until we get this paper done. So we had to do the IRB approval stuff, so it was really just starting to get an idea of what this paper was going to be about, getting topic, figuring out, what the timeline was going to look like, how we were going to achieve these things. So, it's like, from semester 6 that you have a daunting task of completing a big research paper. So that was there as well. But, the stress of failing out of school because of grades really wasn't there anymore. It was just a matter of, this is physically, emotionally, mentally taxing task to work 40-hour weeks and still do assignments in the back burner. But you just kind of just go. So then semester 7 came, and I went to a new clinical site. Semester 5 and semester 6, I was at the same clinical site. I was there for 8 months, which was actually great, because there's some schools that have you rotate month to month, or certain amount of time. 1 second. All right, so I was just going over that footage that you just saw, and I don't know if you noticed, I lost a little bit of weight. I was so swollen in that video. Anyway, I'm going to finish that train of thought because I got an important phone call, and then after that, I didn't record again. I was in a recording mindset, and then I just stopped, and then I never got back into it. So anyway, I think I had just finished talking about semester 6 and working on the capstone project and working 40 hours a week. So then I also started at a new clinical site, and that was an adjustment because I had just finished 8 months at my first clinical site. And now going into another site as a senior, they expected from us to be like ready, like gung-ho to take on our own rooms and stuff like that. And I wasn't. I was very much micromanaged and kind of coddled in my first clinical site. I did learn a lot. I was very comfortable with the staff. That helps in and of itself, because people know, they have expectations of what you're capable of because they know you. And then I'm going into this new site as a senior, running my own rooms, and it was just like, whoa, this is overwhelming. Hold on, let me catch my breath. So that was just a huge stressor. I was driving a lot more to get to that clinical site. I just felt like that clinical site, although it was like daunting and like it felt overwhelming, and I had the most stress that I possibly could have had, I felt like that's where I had my most like biggest growth, like most improvements, I guess you can say. And we were still doing DMP stuff. That semester actually was so strange. We were supposed to be getting assigned like the person that we were just going to coordinate with and not have to worry about checking into class. And it kind of just became like so lax that we didn't do anything that semester for the DMP. And it just sucked. Like we were working on our IRB applications and things like that. And that in a sense was done. Like I did do that, but then we were waiting for IRB approval, and it was like we couldn't really do anything without that. So it was kind of like a limbo moment for the capstone project, which was, I think, like the worst part. Because then we could have like made moves and finished by like BB completely done by semester 8, which was the plan, and we didn't. So yeah, another 40-hour week, like for the whole semester at a site that, was just very stressful for me. And then from there, in the summer, I did my specialties. This was the last year of school. So we worked on specialties. I did OB, I did hearts, and peds. And, just like that in and of itself was a stressor because you're changing everything. You're learning new anesthesia, new places, things like that. I was going to Tampa as well. One of the sites I had to go to Tampa for a month, so I had to get a hotel for a month. It was a lot. It was a lot. And then still working on my capstone stuff. And then semester 9, we were doing still some capstone stuff. We dropped down from 40 hours a week to 32 hours a week, which was, it didn't even feel like a big difference. But I was at the original clinical site that I had started the year with, and it was great because I felt like they were a little more adequately staffed. I'll admit that. And it just felt like a different experience altogether. And I felt a little more comfortable as well. So I don't know if it was a combination of the two, but I learned so much at that place. Like, I'm grateful for it. I hated it. I hated the commute. I hated, the sickness, like the acuity of the patients. But anyway, it was like a huge growing experience for me. And then finishing the capstone, and we had assignments from Apex. And that, I think, was another added stressor because the Apex exams were part of our grade. So it was like, oh my gosh, like these Apex tests are so hard and I'm not doing well. I'm getting below the national average. Like, it was just a whole lot. I felt like the last semester I gained 20 pounds. Like, I'll admit, like I went from weighing 180 to 200. Like, I said it, I weighed 200 pounds. And it was just a lot. Like, it was like, and again, it's like every single time you get something, new semester, you have more assignments, new things, and you just feel like it's impossible, but somehow you just always manage to make do. And yeah, so that's my 3-year reflection. Now I'm going to go into, I've been post school for some time, and that's like what this next clip that I'm going into is, just reflecting on things and just rambling, so to speak. So you're welcome. So yeah, that's it for this train of thought. Sorry. So CRNA school, it's officially over. I've been done now for about 5 months. I finished school at the end of December, and I didn't take boards until the first, well, it was the 9th of January. I was going to say the first week of the new year, but it was 9 days in. And I'm just like so grateful that it's over, but part of me still has like a little bit of a trauma response, like thinking that I have assignments due or that I need to pack my bags and head out to Naples every week, because that's how I was going to school. I was commuting. So on the weekends I would come home, and then during the week I would go over to where I needed to go to school. So, there's some nights that I'm just like, oh, I gotta pack my bags and head out, because it's just something that I did for 3 years and now I'm not doing it anymore. So it's definitely been an adjustment in terms of like getting familiar with what routine looks like now. And once I was done with school, I just sat, and I don't know, it was just like not reflecting, not doing, like I just kind of sat. Like 3 months of just nothing. Like I was going to the gym, and I was like just trying to find a routine that worked for me, but in the end I would just sit like on the couch all day and do nothing. I wanted to film videos. I wanted to just do so many things, like hobbies that I couldn't do throughout the 3 years, and I didn't do any of it. Like, I didn't do a thing. Like, I really have nothing to say for my 3 months that I did nothing. Like, I didn't do anything productive. I didn't do anything important. I was trying to figure out like, cooking and like being home full time, and just getting familiar with what that looked like, because even still, when I was before school and I was just working, I was working night shift, so I really didn't have some sense of normalcy either when it came to like day and night and all that, and like just having a normal life. So it was just getting familiar with what I wanted from my days and things like that. But I don't know, I really can't even explain the lazy, so to speak, nature of how I spent 3 months waiting for credentialing. But yeah, well, nah, I did do something that I wanted to do. I had been wanting to watch Star Wars, and I'll tell you that I am obsessed. But yeah, it was just like I would go to the gym, get home, put on some sort of, either it was a movie or a show regarding Star Wars, and that's all I did for the day. And I was content with that. It just felt like at times like I needed to turn in assignments, or I needed to be studying, or I needed to be doing something for school, and it just was like a trauma response, like from what I just gone through. So it was like a lot of decompressing, I guess maybe that's what it was. But I'm happy that it's over. As far as the school itself, I reflect on it, whoever asks me, and I tell them the same thing. School is going to be what you put in. If you want to have a good experience, you make sure to be like the most prepared student you possibly can, working on your care plans, looking up your patients ahead of time, having your room ready. It was like a lot of my school, like the part that I feel like was the best takeaway was during the clinical portion, and that is not going to be based on what your school is going to provide you. The what the school can provide is the clinical sites, so hopefully they have good ones, but the majority of your learning is going to be from preceptors, and just the environment that you're at, the type of community, the patients in the community that you're working. So I don't think any school is more superior than the other. I feel like the clinical realm is where you gain the majority of your knowledge. How the school structures the curriculum and how they plan the DMP stuff and all that, like that's important. But I do feel like the majority of your school is going to be from your clinical sites, and also from what you, as a student, want to get out of it. Because if you're the kind of student that is there to do your case and then just leave so you can go home and study, I don't know if that's going to be the best in terms of learning from the clinical realm. Like if you're just there to complete your hours, get your case numbers, it is what it is. But if you really like care for your patients and just want to like be familiar with how the hospital does things, because maybe you plan on working there, that's another thing to consider as well. Like if you plan on working at that clinical site. I feel like in terms of what I felt would have benefited for me is that if I would have rotated at the site that I'm working at now, that would have definitely made my orientation, so to speak, a little easier to transition from being a student to a CRNA. But I didn't have that ability to rotate there. But, it's just been a learning experience and learning what the community is like in terms of, the acuity of patients and whatnot. But as far as school goes, like what my main takeaways from school is like you're going to get out what you put in. So if you want to learn, you will succeed. If you kind of think that the school is going to be spoon feeding you the information, you're not going to be getting that. Depending on if you're in an integrated program versus front loaded program and how your learning style is, it's going to reflect on how well you perform as a student. I don't think that it's like the most critical thing to get A's in everything. I feel like that's how my mindset was in the beginning, just because I was so afraid of failing. And I just didn't want to, let everybody down. Like there was a lot riding on it. So if I set the goal that I wanted a 4.0, that I couldn't possibly fail, because if I got a B, or, you know what I mean? I'm aiming for the A's, so that it's like going to reflect on me passing and like just succeeding, you know what I mean? So that's why I had set that goal for myself and early on in the school journey. It wasn't necessarily like a hard line. I just felt like I was aiming for it. And I will admit that it helped. My GPA at the end of school was a 3.83. I think out of the 3 years, I got 5 Bs. The rest were A's. But I mean, and it doesn't really matter at this point, because I'm not going to be going back to school anytime soon. I don't think that I want to do anything in, a fellowship in the future. I feel like I'm done with school. Like I don't want to go back. Like I don't think that there's any point to it at this point, just because I just don't see it. I'm more than content leaving my education where it is right now, and that's why the grades don't necessarily matter. It was just a matter of me not filling out, just because my GPA from the past wasn't so great. I didn't do so hot in my undergrad, and I just didn't want that to be
haunting me for the rest of my life. And that's also a weight taken off of my shoulders, because I felt like, based on my transcripts and all of that, like on paper, I didn't look like a good student. So I also felt like I wasn't a good student, and it was just something, a me problem. But now that that's done, like I'm done with school, I had a 3.83 GPA, like I can finally put that behind me. And I feel grateful for that, because man, feeling like a failure, or feeling like, I didn't live up to my expectations, that kind of weight, just it bears on you. And it's just like, I'm glad that it's gone now. So yeah, so I'm happy to be done with school. And one thing I'll say too is, like, if I could do it, you could do it. I don't think I'm a good student by any means. I don't think that I don't know. I just feel like if I could do it, you could do it. And that's one of the main reasons why I posted updates throughout my journey, and just making it feel real. I hated seeing channels that, would, dwell on the fact that it's so hard, and dwell on the fact that you need to study so much. Like, we know that, we know how much information there is, and you don't want to look dumb, and you don't want to look like you don't know what you're talking about. So it's like, you want to learn. That, I think that's the most important thing. As long as you want to learn, you'll succeed. You don't need to, sacrifice everything, and put this as the only thing that you're prioritizing. I think it's important to prioritize you, prioritize your mental health, prioritize your family. I do feel like I didn't prioritize excuse me, my mental health. And toward the end of school, it I definitely felt it. Like, I started losing my hair. It was manifesting in ways that I wouldn't have foreseen. Like, I don't know, I started to gain a lot of weight, and my diet hadn't changed, and, like, just the hair loss in general. Like, I was losing hair, like, in the clumps. So it was like, I was so stressed. I wasn't focusing on what I needed to do in terms of relaxing and finding um a happy medium to manage the stress. And I feel like that was more so harder than the actual material, because man, I would have headaches every single day. And it was all the stress, like migraines. And I just attributed it to, like, oh, the scrub cap and my glasses and the mask. And no, it was just the fact that my brain was just on overdrive every single day. It was a lot. I'll admit, it was a lot. I will say that it's doable. It was doable. But try to find a way to manage your stress, find a way to just find happiness. I'm rambling at this point, because I just do. That's what I do. But I found that my coping mechanisms were maybe not the best. Initially, when I started the didactic portion, I started getting heavily into plants, and I started just going gung ho with that. That blew up. My house was full of plants. I had 300 plus plants. I'm pretty sure. At this point, I don't even know. And that became too overwhelming. So then I kind of started to downsize when it came to that, and then I started to build Lego, and it's just like, if I show you, like, I have a Lego collection going on over there. Like, it's just, these are all the things that you do, like, seeking that little bit of, like, dopamine, like that little bit to make you happy, because in the end, like, you're not happy with where you're at the moment. And I feel like that is just a reflection of the surroundings, the environment, the situation. And that's normal. It doesn't seem like it, but I feel like it is. Like, you have to do things that make you happy. You have to find ways that bring you joy, because you're not. Like, I'm sorry, if you're in school and you're happy to be in school, good for you. But that wasn't the case for me. I was working so hard, not getting paid, getting yelled at, getting belittled, people talking down to me. And, like, it was just, it was an experience that I don't think, I don't know. It's so hard to put a finger on, because I feel like these people would speak to you in a way that it's like, I don't know where they get the audacity, so to speak. But it was just trauma. It was all trauma. I don't want to make it sound like it was awful, but I did have a lot of good days, but the bad days far outweighed the good ones. So I might have had a few bad days compared to like the multitude of good ones and like a multitude of good learning experiences, but the bad ones definitely make you remember them. And although you do learn from your mistakes, it's just not the greatest feeling at the moment. But I was saying all these things about how people say, oh God, school sucks. Okay, school sucks. It's 3 years. Just tough it out. You'll be fine. Um, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Think of it this way: you never have to go back to school again. You never have to worry about building your resume for um, an interview or anything like that. At that, once you're done with school, like you look for a job, and it's like they need you. So you don't have to. After this, it's over. It's like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You will be great. Everything is fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I promise I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Another thing that I will mention that is probably not talked about enough is the friends that you make in this program. You're going through it just like they are. It's nothing like going through the same experience with somebody. You're all going in the trenches. Like you all are experiencing it, and that bond that you create with people, it's on another level. Like these people are your friends for life. At least it was for me. We may not talk every day. We may not, keep in touch like we were when while we were in school. But you know that there's that special bond that will always keep you close to them no matter what. So, all right. Well, that's enough of my rambling. Just know that it can be done. I might sound so negative just because I was already kind of burnt out from school, but it was exciting to learn so many new things. I just love learning, and I'm happy that I'm done with school. I'm done with with taking out any more student loans. Now it's time to pay them back. But yeah, I'm grateful for the experiences that I gained while in school. I'm grateful for all the help that I received. I'm grateful for all the help that I received from family and friends that got me through this. It takes a village to get where you need to be in the end, and I couldn't have done it without my friends and family, financially, emotionally. Yeah, I'm grateful that it's over. And you guys who are watching, if you're in school or planning to go to school, you can do it too. If I could do it, you could do it. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.